So hi, I'm Ashley from the comms team at Leo, and with me today is Bev Veers. Hi Bev, how you doing?
Hi Ashley, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. It's sunny, what's not to like? It's lovely here. Is it nice by where you are?
Absolutely today, yes, really nice.
Fabulous. Okay. Now, Bev, you've been an investigator at the Legal Ombudsman, or Leo, as we affectionately call it, for 2 years, just over 2 years now. So could you just give us an overview of the role of an investigator? What's the purpose of it?
Okay, the purpose of my role is to speak to consumers, service providers, which are all our customers, to try and resolve the complaints that they have brought to the Legal Ombudsman regarding the service they've received from a service provider, whether that be solicitors or barristers. But that's what my role is. To resolve,
get to the bottom of those complaints.
Get to the bottom of it, to understand what the complaint is from the complainant, and then negotiate and relay that to the service provider and try to resolve it via investigation, reviewing evidence specific to that particular case, and then sharing the evidence to ultimately, tell them what I found, tell them what my views on the service are.
Okay, fabulous. So describe a typical week in the life, or maybe a day in the life of what it's like to be an investigator. How do you plan your week or your day, to make sure that you're achieving those objectives of getting to the bottom of those complaints?
Okay, well, what we have sort of a work management sheet, which actually sort of gives us where we're supposed to be with a particular file at any particular time. So that's key, really. You tend to use that daily to find out what you would need to do, whether it be assessing a file, sending a letter to a file, asking for evidence, writing a case decision. That tells you what you need to do, and it's also a tool used by management, so it's something you need to update. You'll look at your sheet and you'll find out sort of what needs to be done and when, and then you'll also go through your case load on the system to find out where you're at. You'll check your emails, and typically you'll correspond with customers. You may call them to scope their complaints, which is finding out about them a bit more. Other things you'll do is you'll review evidence, which is quite a lot of the job, and you need to sort of pay attention to detail, really, because you're going through evidence, putting it in date order from both parties. So there's quite a lot of that, and ultimately, if nobody sort of agrees with what you've done in reviewing the evidence, you will write a case decision, which again is quite detailed. That is what happens in the job in a nutshell. However, there's more to it, because things will come up where you'll need to make more calls, but it's generally customer contact, reviewing any evidence that we've asked for, asking further questions, getting advice from your colleagues, and then ultimately trying to progressing the case as much as you can, doing what you can in order to resolve it. And resolving it, the reason I say resolve it is because resolving it may be closing it by dismissing it, which is an option to us, or closing it by agreeing an outcome, rather than going through the whole process. So there's several ways you can resolve a case. So again, there's no set week or day. It's different.
It's quite,
which is good.
Yeah.
You don't know, even if you plan, you don't know what will happen apart from what you planned, which is good. And the variety of people you speak to is brilliant.
Okay, fantastic. So it's okay. So how do you know when you're successful? How is your performance actually measured?
Okay, performance is measured basically on sort of how many cases I'm taking, how I maintain my caseload, and how many cases I'm closing, still keeping all the quality, the impartiality, everything that I'm supposed to do. But it is sort of ultimately I'm closing files down, so therefore I'm helping more people. I'm going back to get them from the queue, because we have a long queue. So the more I get, the better, but not sacrificing any quality and rushing it. Some cases will take a few weeks, a month, because there's something that can be resolved and everybody's happy. Some cases can take several months because you may need further evidence, people may not be available, there's all sorts of things. So you sort of, no one case is the same. Although there's certain amount of time you get to do things, you can sort of say, I'm not able to do this in that time, is that okay? And as long as you're talking to your team leaders, that's how you're measured, really, on sort of how many helping, how many you're closing, how your quality is, and generally sort of make sure everything's okay.
So I guess you've got to have a number of cases at any, like a caseload at any one time. Yeah. Is that right?
I mean, I think it's between it varies, different people, different projects, but generally between 16 and 18 files, and then you can't say how fast you'll do them, but some will go quicker, and then you just take another one, and then you assess it, and then you start off the process of contacting the complainant and the service provider, giving them a call, building the rapport, and going through the whole investigation with requesting the evidence. So
fabulous. Okay, thank you. What would you say you find most challenging then about the role?
I think, if I'm honest, some technical sides. Obviously, we've all got different backgrounds, and obviously I'm experienced in parts of the law that I'm dealing with, but I think when you first start, it's technical. I think it's, if you've not dealt with certain parts of the law, that would be most challenging. But there is so much on guidance, which is absolutely wonderful, and also the people and colleagues, they can give you as much information as you like, and also you're fully trained before you deal with that particular area of law. However, there are still things that they're all going to be new to us, so yeah, I find that most challenging, but also most interesting, because I'm learning then about the new area of law, or something in an area of law I know, but something unusual's happened, as it does.
Okay, fantastic. And so I guess opposite to that question, what do you find most rewarding about the role?
I think when you've actually been dealing with a customer and a service provider, you're aware of what the customer wants, you're aware of what the service provider's position is, you come up with your position and your views, and you manage to relay them to the customer and the service provider, and they'll go with what you've suggested because they trust you. They believe you've looked at it impartially, they believe you've been independent, and they are happy to accept your decision. And obviously I have nothing to win by giving them a wrong decision, and everything to gain by giving them a fair and reasonable decision. So they all know there's nothing in it for me to make them sort of believe something that's not true. Yeah, and that's the most rewarding. And getting emails of thank you from solicitors and customers when you've done a really good job and you've listened, because it is good to care and have empathy. And also, if you can give a bit of a personal touch, if you feel comfortable, it really helps trust, and people, because you're listening to them as an individual. They're not statistic, they're not a number, they're not a customer, it's them and you. And I guess,
yeah, you say that. I mean, just picking up on that, I mean, listening is really key, isn't it? Because when customers that are complaining that come to us, they're going to be in a pretty stressful situation already. So as you say, listening is really key, isn't it?
Yeah, when they first come to us, they're going to have been waiting a while anyway. So you're going to try to build the rapport up at the beginning. But yes, just listening to what's happened to them, and that is key as well, because you need to understand the complaints yourself anyway. And to do that, you need to talk about it. It might seem very easy to say, well, the service provider delayed. You need to know what they've delayed in, what specifically, what happened, where, what was the date, what was it. So you do need to listen carefully. And as I say, you can check your phone calls if you needed to go back and listen. We record our calls, which is really handy at the beginning for training as well. But yeah, you have to listen, because especially if you repeat back as well what you've heard, then they really do understand that you have listened and taken it in.
Okay. So. Fabulous, thank you. So what type of support do you get, for your role? What does that look like?
Well, I'll have my meetings with my team leader every 2 weeks for my side-by-side, which helps me go through my cases, and my one-to-one, which is like performance-based, how I'm doing, whether I'm in time with my cases, whether the quality's there, whether I'm closing them, whether I'm taking them, that sort of thing. And also we get feedback from the level ones when we've asked for advice, or when they've checked something, because we have certain things that are checked. They give us feedback, so that's always very helpful, and you can talk to them about that.
When you say level one, Bev, just clarify that for us.
Level one ombudsman is the first stage of advice We would go for, the team leader would be there for sort of performance and sort of general day-to-day issues. The level 1 ombudsman is there for the advice that you may need on technical matters and process and things like that. And they're there to sort of make sure everything's sort of done fairly, really.
Excellent. So I've got to my final question for you. So for someone that wanted to come to Leo, what advice would you give someone new to the role of investigator?
I would say plan. Make sure you have a plan. I use the workload management sheet, but I also use a separate spreadsheet. It's just one I've made up myself. Also, if you need help, ask your team leader. That's what they're there for. They really will help and guide you. The job is brilliant. It's really interesting. You meet some really nice people. The people that work here are lovely. Every single one is helpful. Everybody wants to help everybody else. They'll always give you their experience. There's just lots of support. You know, obviously I'm working from home as well in between because of the way we work. It's 2 days in the office and the rest at home, which is wonderful. It's a really nice balance. And if you need to speak to somebody, they're always on Teams, they're always on the computer. And if you wanted to go in every day, I'm sure you could. You know, it's just whatever suits you. The work-life balance is great. Work-life, home-life balance is great. And as I say, it is rewarding. You know, when you've actually resolved a complaint for a customer and service provider, especially if it's a very detailed complaint and it's been going on a long time, it really is satisfying. I mean, it really is. I can't say how it is. But the job's really interesting. I've done quite a few different investigation jobs, and I do find this one interesting.
Fabulous. Okay, excellent. Well, look, Bev, thanks so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. I know you're a very busy lady, and I wish you a very great day.
And you, and thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, take care.